has been, he's from the state of Ohio, and he's been married for 12 years with his wife. And he actually serves on the OCD Midwest chapter affiliate of the International OCD Federation, representing Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. He was diagnosed with OCD during a hospitalization in 1997. And through the years, he's dealt with various persistent themes and presentations of OCD involving moral scrupulosity, responsibility, and harm. He was able to achieve a better way of life after accessing exposure and response prevention, getting medication correction, and receiving support through the OCD community, as well as other support networks. He facilitates a peer support group on Zoom for individuals with OCD and their family members. And he strongly believes and has faith in God and the capacity for positive change and the importance of OCD treatment. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you for having me, Christina.
So you and I connected briefly, and we talked a little bit about, what would be kind of something that would be interesting, I think, to talk about today, which is OCD and identity. And I actually think that's really an incredible topic, because I think quite a few people, if not almost, dare I say, everybody has moments where when you're having kind of onset of OCD, you can question your identity. You might feel like you're losing your identity. So yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about your experience with that.
Well, and yeah, just to second what you said there, Christina, is I do think it's a really common experience. I mean, I almost think that it almost has to be part of the experience in order to, have long-standing OCD. I mean, it's hard to not lose yourself in all that for so many years. I so when I was diagnosed, I was 13. So I really didn't know myself too well at that point anyway. I want to say, I knew what I knew, but it wasn't like I had, developed a lot in my life or anything by that point. Looking back on it now, I'm pretty sure I've always had it, but I want to say that I didn't lose my identity at first, when I was first diagnosed, or even like a year afterward. I was still just trying to navigate everything. I knew I thought I knew who I was, but something was seriously wrong. And the loss of identity came in the many years after that, slowly and progressively. I just spent so much time, just trying to solve the emergency, trying to prevent the emergency. Whatever the emergency was, be it, did I do this? Is this going to happen? Is my family safe? I had this horrible thought, and I don't know what that means about me and things. So there was a lot of inward analysis in myself to try to find out who I really was, why a person like me would be having such bad thoughts and having to do things that other people didn't really have to do or didn't seem that they had to do. So it was one of those things where I analyzed myself to the point where it was like, well, I can't ever get the answer that I want, and I can't ever know. And then it just got to the point where it was just like, there's the crisis, find the result. There's the crisis, find the result. Over and over and over again. I really didn't. And then that's kind of how I lost me in the process. Is I was like, any kind of life was secondary to solving the problem for like probably about 20, 22 years.
Mm.
It was like, any kind of life that I tried to build up in the process was immediately halted by solving whatever crisis presented to me,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of that OCD kind of element, right? Is it feels very intensive. It feels very much like it needs immediate attention and kind of sense of urgency, crisis, catastrophe. I mean, I think those probably resonate with folks when you really are having that onset, when you're having that trigger. Um, it's like everything else completely disappears. We go almost into what I call this tunnel vision. You really can't see anything else. So with kind of that progressive loss of your identity, what happened then in terms of like, how did you even realize, my gosh, like, I don't even know who I am, or what happened? Where at what point was there a turning point for you? that you realize, wait a minute, something's not quite right?
So, I mean, it was I always knew that things weren't quite right, and I was actually pretty rare in that I got diagnosed correctly when I was 13 because I had a really good psychiatrist, and I got family history that they were probably able to look back on and see. But I think that it was just that it was I was able to, just I apologize, my cat's right here behind the computer screen. So no, I was just able to say, I think I know who I am. Obviously, I can't be 100% sure who I am, but I think I know who I am. But I don't I didn't have any time to even build an identity. I don't think, or even. I mean, it was so wound up with all the obsessions and compulsions and that I'm like, I think I've got a decent idea of who I am underneath all this, but I've kind of lost all that. I mean, that one of the most frustrating things about it was people that I went to school with, um, progressing, kind of on the course that they were on, kind of, getting a job and holding it for 7, 10 years, going to college and following whatever they were going to study, starting a family and working a job like it was no big deal. And I'm like, I tried to just play everything very, very cool and just do the best I could.
Mhm.
All the while, I had a lot going underneath all that. And 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 so it got to the point where the turning point for me was a total absolute crisis in my life. That was I the only thing I had to do was what I hadn't done, which was exposure and response prevention, and really, really get serious about the state of my life. After all that, I was able to uncover all that stuff that I was pretty sure about in the first place, and bring that up to the surface. But it didn't happen before that.
Got it. So for you, it sounds like because you got a correct diagnosis, which is great, because yeah, that a lot of people don't get to have that, but you got that early on. But it sounds like because it was all early on, it was like you said, it was intertwined. Everything was intertwined. So as you were developing, as you were growing, as your identity was blossoming, right? It was all mixed together with OCD. So it sounds like once you got the treatment for OCD, which is in this case exposure response prevention, that you were able to kind of separate it a little bit from that OCD and kind of am I hearing you right? And kind of reconnect back to all the parts of yourself that you always knew were there, but finally kind of have them come forward more.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that couldn't be more true. And it was such an amazing experience. It was to have that happen. It was scary though at the same time because all I had ever known really, as far as my memory could go back, I was 35 when I went through treatment, and I got diagnosed at 13, so that had been 22 years at that point. And I really had lost all frame of reference for what was like to not OCD because I got diagnosed so young. And so when my therapist and I worked together and I finally hit that point where I could kind of see the other side and just say, whatever. And when I got to that point, it was scary because it was like, I was leaving all I ever knew.
Mm.
And I was like, what is this world out here that doesn't feel, like I'm used to feeling?
It's interesting you say that because actually there have been several times I could think of when working with clients directly where folks would say after undergoing treatment and understanding finally, aspects of OCD and themselves better, that they kind of found like, okay, I have suddenly more space or room or time in my life, and I don't even know what to do with this because I don't know anything outside of being kind of in that constant state of for lack of a better word, let's say, crisis, intensity, catastrophe, problem, as you said, right? That something's always happening and I'm always feeling like I have to chase it or fix it or solve it, or I have to do something. And suddenly when all of that kind of quiets down, like, whoa, what now? What is this? It's that it feels a little bit disorienting for folks.
Yeah, definitely. And I felt that kind of as I went along, but I'm like, things feel really differently. I mean, like physically, things are feeling really different. And I just kept telling myself, but I'm going to keep going because I know the other way. I know what I'm
Mhm,
going to fall back into if I don't. So I'm willing to go on this journey, wherever it takes me. And 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 it was beautiful. I remember shortly after I kind of hit that point in treatment towards the end, I was I was in bed one night, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and for a minute, and I just started laughing, and that wasn't like me at all, and I was just like,
mm,
I just felt so like I felt so detached from everything that I had always been attached
mm,
to the point where I was like, this can't be real, and but it was, and
yeah.
and and then I sort of, now this is the we've heard a lot of that term, the new normal, in the past, few years.
Mhm,
I had to tell myself, this is the new normal for me,
mhm, mhm.
and
Yeah.
I'm never ever going back to never.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, it's true. When you have that kind of healthy detachment and you understand and there's that separation, yeah, I think it's quite incredible to kind of realize that. And I think, as you're speaking, the other piece that comes up too, it's beautiful to get to the place where you have that kind of new normal and realize like, oh, it can be like this. There is another way life can be. Um, and I think sometimes, and I don't know if that's happened for you, but I wonder, sometimes people say things like that they have moments of also sometimes grief or a little bit of kind of feeling of loss or sadness because of like, oh my gosh, all these years or all this time that I kind of lost because of OCD. Did you experience anything like that?
I did, and I do. I should
Mm,
say it's kind of it comes in waves. Sometimes it'll hit me out of the blue, and because it's not like all that time didn't just happen.
right.
It's not like you know life stopped and started again. It's like you went through all that, and you processed all that, and even as good as it is sometimes, sometimes it's still not so good. Uh, um, but that's okay. And um, but yeah, I get to think about all the times that I kind of lost out on. I mean, where I would be in my life right now had I just gone on like a normal person. And then I and think about that for a minute, and everything, but then I finally separate myself and say, you know what, it's done. I believe it happened for a reason. I at the end of the day, I wouldn't change anything in my life.
Mm.
Um and and I mean, it's one of those things where, yeah, it was horrible, but it helped make you who you are, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful reframe. And thank you for sharing all that. I mean, I think it's really, really important for people to hear about other people's lived real experience and that, it is normal if you are like in your case where you've grown up with OCD always there. And then when suddenly you learn how to kind of quiet that side, kind of going through this next process of evolution, if you will, and kind of a different, emergence of identity. And also like, yeah, there is a little bit of that sadness around things that, could have been different had, I learned this earlier on perhaps, but at the same time, it is what it is, right? And that's where we have to come to that place of acceptance and realizing, like you just said, it's how you use that information that I can use it for my growth
one of the things I did is, I took, like, it's shortly after when you were going back talking about all the use of time and all that, and I read about that before it actually happened in my life. I read about, cases about all this free time you're supposed to have, and it happened, and then I had to take an inventory about, how do I wanna fill that free time?
Yeah.
And and I got to thinking, there's, what do I wanna do? I mean, what do I wanna contribute with that time? I mean, family time, advocacy time, you know, um, church time, um, time, learning new things, you know, um, you know, and and there's sometimes when I still find myself having a little much to time, but I mean, that's okay. I'll still take that alternative over the other.
Right? Yes. When you know how bad it is or
Yeah,
how bad it can get, you're like, I'll take anything but this.
yeah.
I'd rather just hang out. That's awesome. So I know that you also mentioned that you facilitate peer support groups. So can you just briefly tell me about that? What is that like? Is that like once a
Sure.
month? Is it kind of a general thing like anybody can come and join?
So yeah, so it's every other Thursday that we have it, from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, because I'm on Eastern time. And but yeah, I'm feel free to email me if you're interested in the group. We open it up to people with lived experience, whatever the stage of your OCD that you're in. If you're in the very beginning, if you're wondering if you have OCD, if you've been diagnosed, all the way up until you're doing pretty well. And we try to link people with resources, and we also try to open it up for family members because it can be very frustrating for family members to navigate all this as well. But yeah, my email is m sizemore, and I think Christine is going to share it in the show notes. But
Mhm.
it's msizemore84@gmail.com. If you're interested in a group, just email me, and I will get you the link. And we've got a great group of people, all very supportive, and it's just from a peer support perspective.
Got it. And so this means anybody from anywhere can join, or do you have to be from any particular location?
No, we don't make it just for a certain region or anything like that.
Awesome.
We've had people from outside of the United States join as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And is there any other words of hope or wisdom you'd like to share with us?
Just no matter how bad it is, th- it's never too bad that you can't get better. And please, if you're watching this podcast, you're already viewing the right information, and many others have done it. Um, and you can do it too. I know that sounds cliche, but you can.
Yeah, I totally second that. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Mike.